morning, everyone. I'm Darren Hartwell. He's Mike Cole. And if you're wondering why we're doing Facebook Live so early in the morning, obviously pretty big news in the sports world last night, particularly as it pertains to the Celtics. Kyrie Irving is now a Boston Celtic. Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder are not. I guess the details of the blockbuster first. Kyrie Irving coming to Boston. Thomas, Crowder, Ante Zizic, and a Brooklyn Nets 2018 pick, all going to Cleveland. Pretty big news. So we're going to be kind of breaking it down a little bit. We'll try to take some of your questions here on the Facebook Live. If you have them, feel free to fire away. I guess gut reaction.
Also, if you have coffee, send coffee.
Yes.
Gut reaction is, we were just talking about this a little bit before we came in here. First of all, it was just shocking. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any sort of indication this was coming anytime soon. Really, the reports in the last couple of weeks have been they've talked or whatever. There's interest on the Celtics side, but nothing seemed imminent. That's for sure. It's a tough one to figure out, and I guess that's what we'll try to do here over the next 20 minutes or so. But I like it for the Celtics. I think I've had a night to sleep on it and really think about it. I like it because I think there's the good outweighs the bad, and you're getting a guy in Kyrie Irving who is a legitimate superstar. I think he's the best player that this roster has seen since Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. I think that's what they needed. We've all talked about that. Sure, you had to give up a lot, but what they've done in the last couple of years through the draft, through a couple other trades, free agency, you've kind of been able to augment different holes that you might have in what you had to give up yesterday. So I like what they did. I think it's and at a certain point too. Maybe we can get into the more big picture, overarching stuff a little bit later. But at a certain point, you've got to cash in those chips. You can't keep kicking the can down the road. And if this team sucks in 3 years, I'm okay with that because at least they made a move and they tried to go. They tried to go for this window. The fact that Isaiah Thomas's contract runs up next year, the fact that LeBron's contract runs up next year, makes it a little easier to take. So there's a lot of different things to get into, but overall, I think it's a good trade. What about you?
Yeah, so Celtics fans wanted the fireworks, right? That's
right.
What they think.
Exactly.
When are the fireworks going to come? He set off all of them.
Yep.
I think there are kind of two sides to this. There's the emotional Celtics fan side of it, and then there's the kind of the basketball part of it. From an emotional standpoint, Isaiah Thomas really kind of had a connection here in Boston. He was kind of the guy, and the Celtics were the scrappy underdog, and they achieved a lot. They really overachieved. And Jay Crowder, I know people have conflicting opinions about him, but he was also a guy who did pretty well for himself here.
Yeah.
From that sense, it's tough to see Isaiah go. It's tough to see Crowder grow. It's tough to see Bradley go. Mm-hmm. But from a basketball point, I'm with you. I mean, they didn't give up Jason Tatum. They didn't give up Jaylen Brown.
Right.
And they acquired Kyrie Irving.
Yep.
Just from that standpoint, they're looking pretty good both in the present and the future.
Yep.
For the one concern for me, we can kind of talk about this more, is the chemistry. You have 4 guys from last year's team still on this roster. It's a completely different team. Brad Stevens is a pretty respected, established coach, but he's still in his 4th or 5th year in the NBA. So we'll have to see how that kind of shakes out, whether he can kind of get everyone in the room on the same page.
Yep.
And go from there. But talent-wise, the Celtics are looking pretty good. I guess we might as well ask the question that everyone wants to know is, are they good enough to beat the Cavs in the East? Can they hang with the Warriors? Where do you kind of see the power structure right now?
They still have no shot of beating the Warriors.
I agree. I agree with that.
That's the biggest thing. They have no chance of winning the title this year. But you make this move knowing that you have Kyrie for at least 2 or 3 more seasons with a chance of extending him. And at some point the salary cap catches up to the Warriors. So maybe down the road they're a title contender. I don't think they are this year. They're better than the Cavs, I think. I'm willing to say that because I just don't trust Isaiah Thomas's hip, and if Thomas goes down, then that's you're not in a good spot because then it's just LeBron and Kevin Love, and I don't think that's going to get it done. the Celtics probably could use a big man because I think we saw, that was a little bit of an issue in that series. But I don't know. I think maybe I'm just higher on Kyrie Irving than a lot of people are. But I just watched this guy play, and he's he has the fearlessness that Isaiah Thomas has, but he also has the physical skills that Thomas doesn't have. And I think that over the course of a 7-game series kind of manifests itself in a more positive way. So I think I like it from that extent as well. The only question I have, and this is what I kind of thought of yesterday, is I don't know who guards LeBron. I mean, I know Marcus Morris was brought in here to be the LeBron guy, but Jay Crowder did a great job. I mean,
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah,
But
maybe. Yeah, that's
smaller.
true. Avery Bradley did it every once in a while.
Yep.
You still have Marcus Smart, so I guess you could probably figure it out. That's my big concern. But I do think they're better than the Cavs, just because they have. See, LeBron's so good. That's the only thing
That's what I was going to come back with. I still think that I still think the Cavs win that series. I think maybe it goes 7 games and it extends out, but I think maybe even 2 years now. I mean, who knows about LeBron's future?
Right.
We can talk about that, but a couple years from now, the Celtics team kind of has a chance to gel a little bit. Another year with Tatum and Brown, but I'm not betting against LeBron in a 7-game series.
I mean,
he still has like a good amount of talent around him. Obviously, there's no Kyrie Irving, but if Thomas is healthy, like Thomas is getting double and triple teamed in the playoffs, and now he has LeBron, and he's going to get open shots.
Yeah.
So I think it would. I think everyone wants to see that. I think it would be a fascinating series.
And it would be too because. Brad Stevens, as good as there is in the business, gonna find a way to probably stop Isaiah Thomas with what he had. That's one thing where
he knows he knows Thomas.
Yeah, right. So it'd be nice to have Avery Bradley still, but again, it's just I like what they did here. I think that they're probably assuming they can figure this out on the fly pretty quickly because again, like you said, with 4 guys coming back, you're inserting a lot of new blood into this. If you can figure it out quickly, I think they're the better regular season team as well. Again, they were last year. They get that home court advantage. I think it means a little bit more now that these teams are closer. It's weird that ideally you make a trade that's equal on both sides. These teams just made a trade that seems pretty equal on both sides, and I'm leaning towards the team that got smoked in the playoffs. But I just think I'm in love with Kyrie Irving. I think in that regard.
I think So I'm seeing a few questions, and this is. I kind of talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
Like who, how is this chemistry going to work out? And I guess who's going to be like the leader on this team? And then like do we have confidence in Brad Stevens that he can, keep this thing together?
Yeah, it's a really good question and something obviously I hadn't thought about. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so all in on this. But I think the leader of this team is Brad Stevens, and. Kyrie had a lot of it is weird. It's going to be like kind of like a college mentality.
Yep.
Kyrie, there were some issues in terms of off court grumbling and things like that, and that's I guess a little bit of a red flag. But again, I think most of his frustration, his consternation, stemmed from being in LeBron's shadow. I think he comes here as the number 1 guy, and I think that's okay with Al Horford. I think Al Horford's not necessarily a guy who needs to be the guy. I think that's more than fine with Gordon Hayward, at least just from what I kind of know about him, which might be unfair to say. But so I think this is Kyrie's team. Whether or not he can grab reins as the leader, that remains to be seen. I think he probably can. I mean, if taking over in the 4th quarter is being a leader, then he's more than capable of doing that. So that's something that is a little worrisome. Maybe Marcus Smart. I mean, he's the
longest tenured Celtic.
He's a very important player on this team now.
Yeah.
He kind of needs to take that next step, both with his game and with his attitude and his emotions and things like that, keeping that in check, being a leader in that locker room. So, they've got a handful of guys who should be able to step up, but it is a question as to whether they will.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of the Kyrie leadership thing. I think that's part of the reason why that was reported why he left the Cavs. He wanted to be the guy, and maybe if he's not, he's not going to just be shooting every time. And they have too much talent on this team outside of him, but he wants to be like the floor general. He wants to be the point guard and not have someone like LeBron essentially just like take over that when the game matters. I think he can be that on court leader. and he's still just 25 years old, so he has there's still a maturation process that could happen there. He could develop into the vocal leader, I guess.
Yeah.
It is an interesting dynamic with Hayward and Stevens, just considering how close they are, and whether there would be some sort of Hayward is Stevens' guy, and then Kyrie Irving's over here, I'm the guy, that sort of thing.
But from a pure basketball standpoint, as I'm just thinking about it, this makes all the sense in the world, and I think it kind of assuages all of these guys' needs and places their talents, because there's nobody better in the NBA. Maybe LeBron, but I don't know. The guy's like a wizard when he gets to the rim.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So if this guy's just sitting here, if he can beat, if he can get into the lane, it's going to be almost impossible to stop this team, because we saw last year how much the Celtics love to shoot the three. Now you've just got Gordon Hayward. You could even have Horford. You got Brown, Tatum. You got a couple guys who can shoot. It's just, it makes a lot more sense. That's the other thing too. If they win, guys get their touches and they win. They're going to be fine. I don't think
we
it's
saw
gonna
Golden
be,
State. They're fine with it.
Yeah, no kid. Yeah.
That's a whole different story. But I guess in terms of we might as well talk. It's not necessarily Celtics related, but just LeBron.
Yep.
Is this an end for the Cavs? Is this LeBron is going to leave in 2018, or is this they're going to try to do something with Thomas and LeBron? They're going to try to team up, and this is the East we could see for a few years.
There's so many people convinced that LeBron's going to the Lakers that I don't see how it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Everything you read, everything you hear, everything you see points to LeBron going to the Lakers when his contract runs up. You don't necessarily know that Isaiah Thomas is going to be healthy or is going to want to stay in Cleveland. I don't, you know what I mean? This guy, Thomas has gone on record as saying he wants a max contract.
Yep.
He's a guy who's gone on record saying he wants to be paid like he thinks he's worth. He gets on the open market, there's going to be teams falling over themselves to bring him in and make him a centerpiece. Whether or not that's the right thing to do for a guy his age who's got a couple injury problems in the past, I don't know. So I think all these different factors, I think that kind of points to LeBron leaving. And again, like I said, it just seems so obvious. It's what we've heard for almost a year now, at least, that LeBron's going to LA, and LA has done a good job of building to get to him. The tampering stuff, not great. But I don't think that's going to stand in the way long term. I think that the Lakers find a way to make it. So I think that this is it, and I think this was maybe that the Cavs looked around and said, what's the best way we can maximize our chances to win the title this year, and also get something for the future. And they did exactly that by getting Isaiah Thomas, who's if he's healthy, is going to be a fantastic player for them alongside LeBron. They get a guy like Crowder who fits a need. And they get the Brooklyn pick, so you can start that rebuild as well. Mm-hmm. But I just don't see how it happens. I just think, again, like I said, too many signs pointing to him leaving.
I think he's gone, and you kind of see he's the type of guy I think who would come out and say I'm staying in Cleveland, and then when that doubt starts to creep in, and he hasn't really been on the record as saying I'm not leaving. He's voiced his concerns. He's kind of held that over the Cavs a little bit. I think the GM situation too, with David Griffin leaving. The only X factor I could see is the Brooklyn pick if they move it.
Yeah.
And get someone else. Get someone else like a Paul George or however it works out. I know there were talks about they want to bring in Dwayne Wade. Obviously he's old. They might just do that anyways for this team.
Right.
But maybe something happens with that. I'm leaning towards your side with LeBron goes, and this is a really interesting Cavs team.
Right.
Who knows how it goes, but I think that's best case scenario for the Celtics. Yeah. This trade, they essentially set themselves up as the best team in the East after next season after LeBron
definitely
leaves.
And that's what I like about this trade for the Celtics, especially, is that you're better or you're at least as good, maybe a little bit better, capable of going to the finals this year. They are, if not the favorite, they are the clear-cut number 2 by a hair. And then once everything else falls into place after next year, this is a trade that's really made for 2018-19. I don't know what year it is now, but I think that's 2 years from now, right?
Yeah.
The math is kind of again, haven't had the coffee yet. It's early. They told me there'd be no math. So I think that's where this deal really kicks into play, especially, and there's already Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN, reported that the Celtics want to sign him long term, Kyrie, that is.
Yeah.
He seems open to it,
yep.
which is insane. I didn't ever expected to hear that. That doesn't seem like a very good job of bargaining. But if he wants to be here long term, then I like this deal even more.
Yeah, and I keep coming back to it. It's like he's 25 years old.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy. You keep forgetting that because it seems like he's been in the league for a few years.
He's got a decent amount of mileage on him, I guess. And for a position like that, sometimes they do break down. But
going from Thomas, a guy who had the significant hip injury, there were reports that the Celtics were concerned about that.
And that's the thing. I keep coming back to the Isaiah Thomas hip injury. Sure, he avoided surgery, but these hip injuries can be not career threatening, but certainly career hampering. There's a lot there, especially for a guy that size.
And it's just tough because of the season he just had.
I tell you what, I do want to get this out there. I was at that 53-point game just as a fan, and it was one of the awesome. Coolest sporting events I've ever been to. He's going to be missed, and I totally get. And again, you kind of touched on this earlier. The sympathetic, emotional Celtics fans. I get that. It sucks, but it is a business. That's also a terrible thing to say because it doesn't kind of takes away from the bonds or whatever the attachment that you have toward the player. But man, he's going to be missed. It is a bummer, but that's the price of doing business.
Yeah, NBA is a business, and if you look at it from that perspective, it's kind of like you got the absolute best out of Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
And I don't know how he can get much better than the third highest scoring player in the league. Just dominating in the playoffs. Are you going to get 2 or 3 more seasons of that or more? That seems like a really tall ask.
And I wonder how much of it too. I don't want to say something that's going to take anything away from Isaiah Thomas, but I wonder how much of it is not overstated or overplayed, but just he was the guy here, and at times he was their primary source of offense. Where it's like, the nights that Al Horford. Again, I think Al Horford gets unfairly criticized in this town, but he would disappear some nights. Mm-hmm. Those are the nights Isaiah goes off for 40. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to do that in Cleveland, so the numbers aren't going to be there as much. I think people thought it was going to be the same thing here now that they added Hayward and they started to getting Tatum in the draft, who's a guy who could score the basketball as well. But he's going to get probably fewer touches in Cleveland. I don't know. I think he's a perfect foil for LeBron. It's going to be I think that's a great combination, but he's just going to have to play a different role. So I think people are going to look up and be like, oh, well, he's not scoring 28 points a game in Cleveland, and that's fine. But I'm not going to say he got overrated in Boston. I just thought that it was a good situation for him to put up numbers.
Yeah. I guess we'll wrap up pretty soon, but last question I also wanted to touch on is, are they going to make any more moves? Is this the team that they go into the season with, or do they need to either this year or the next year? Do they need another piece? Maybe it's a small piece, maybe it's a big piece to really solidify themselves as, all right, this is a team that can take on the Cavs, take on the Warriors, because that's what they're going for here. That's obviously what they're going for here, and they have the future set up pretty nicely too. But this is the window.
If I was Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, even Kyrie Irving, I'd probably still rent as opposed to buying in Boston because, again, Danny Ainge just proved yesterday that he's willing to do anything. And I was talking to one of my buddies yesterday, and he suggested that they might still have the pieces to make a run at a guy like Anthony Davis if the Pelicans go sideways this season. That seems. I'm not saying that that's the next domino to fall. I think it's something they could still do if they want at a certain point. But in terms of smaller moves, I think they're probably pretty much done. I haven't looked at the numbers especially, but I don't know. They've got. It's just one of those things where you're so top heavy. There's not a whole lot of flexibility, especially now that you have, Kyrie, Horford, Hayward. So. I'm sure they'll probably get a guy or two to kind of round out the roster. I'd still like to see another big guy. Especially now you don't have Zizic, So they have to do maybe a minor move here or there, but I think they're pretty much done, right? I was
going to say the big man too, but they have they kind of addressed that. They went out and got Morris. They went out and got Baines, who actually
That's a good point. Yeah, I forgot about Baines. Yeah.
He might start.
Right.
Just be like the Amir Johnson, just starting for like 5 minutes, and then whoever comes in.
You get your rotation. Yeah.
Yeah. But they could maybe stand to use another rebounder. Morris is not much of a rebounder, and Horford can be. He plays a little bit more outside sometimes. But again, Stevens likes the kind of the small ball deal.
Yeah.
He likes athleticism.
Right.
He likes stretching the floor. And I think as constituted, this is like they're going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they
next
are.
season.
That's a good point too. I hadn't thought about that, especially if a guy like Tatum comes in and contributes immediately.
Yeah.
Probably not going to put up the kind of production he did in Summer League, obviously, but I think that he's a guy who's going to hit some big shots, I think, at certain points in the season. One thing I did actually want to mention, we haven't really talked about it yet, and I noticed people here in the comments kind of going on about the Nets pick.
Yeah.
And, first of all, rest in peace to the Nets trade. Unbelievable. After all, it's
it got you Kyrie Irving. That was the last.
Yeah. It got you Kyrie Irving
and
Tatum and Brown. For two aging guys who did nothing for a bad team. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I understand why people are upset about losing that pick. That does stink, especially with another top-heavy draft coming. I think the Nets are going to be better this year. I think they've actually done some things this offseason. They have no incentive to tank. They have no incentive to suck, so they're probably not going to suck as much. And what are the chances that you get the top pick 2 years in a row? I mean, we sat here. People couldn't believe that the Celtics got the number one pick, given how much bad luck they've had in the lottery. What are the chances that you're going to have good luck 2 years in a row?
Yeah.
If you're not picking first this year, again, there's some good talent at the top of the draft, but if you're not picking first, what's the difference between, let's say, 2 and 5, where they had the Lakers pick? So
I was going to say, they have other picks still. They have other assets.
It's not the end of the world. It does stink, especially because we just saw that pick get turned into the number one pick. But it's the price you pay. They gave up a lot, but they're getting a superstar, and they're getting a guy I think that people are going to love within a month of the season starting.
Yeah. Well,
if you haven't been paying attention already, because if you have been, you should love them already. But.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out. I think there's going to be another one.
This guy hates LeBron, too.
Who?
Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie? Yeah.
So that's a cool part, too.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that till right now. He hates LeBron. So he'll fit in very well here.
There's going to be a whole soap opera.
Opening night, Celtics at Cavs. I can't wait.
I know, that's the best part, is they're playing opening night, and they were already pumping up Celtics Cavs before this. Now it's Isaiah Thomas playing against the Celtics. That's a whole different deal too. But the biggest one, Kyrie versus LeBron.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. We'll have a ton more content on Nesson.com, and we'll be covering this trade, pretty fully. But thanks for waking up with us and talking some Celtics Kyrie trade.